You are listening to a free version of the Majority Report with Sam Steeder. To support the show and get another 15 minutes of daily program, go to majority.fm, please.
The Majority Report with Sam Steeder.
It is Monday, November 27th, 2017. My name is Sam Steeder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, lawsuit filed in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, two popes battle. As it's the good guys versus the bad guys. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has found that the FCC net neutrality process full of fake comments, hundreds of thousands from New York State alone. Guess which way they comment. John Conyers steps down from the Judiciary Committee. Al Franken returns to the Senate. Roy Moore, still a pedophile, but we're taking a second look at maybe the reasons why. Also on the program today, new numbers on the Republican tax deal. A disaster if you're not really wealthy. And never Trumpers call for a popular front. But what's their give? And states prepare to kick millions of children off of health care insurance. Flynn's legal team has quit. Other potential defendants, good meaning he's soon to crow or has been crowing. Melania is complaining. And reason, I don't know, 1,151. While we need a single-payer system in this country, Nazis and gun sales all over the Thanksgiving break. And lastly, 300 people plus killed in the Egyptian mosque attack over Thanksgiving. All this and more on today's program. I hope that your Thanksgiving was good. I guess, what do you want out of Thanksgiving? Non-eventful. Matt was out hunting. Apparently he did not go hunting. I haven't heard how Jamie's went, but I've heard everybody else's. How was yours, Jamie?
Oh, it was super fun.
Super fun?
Yeah, we went to my friend's parents' farm in Rhode Island, and there was some family drama, but none of it involved me, so
that's the best nice. Kind of fun.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it when other people's family fights. I love it. I love to hear crying babies and know that it's not mine.
Exactly.
It's fantastic. That's the best case scenario. What town was the farm in?
Exeter.
Don't know it. How far up in Rhode Island? I guess there's really no.
I don't know. It took us like 2.5 hours to get there.
All
very nice. Very nice. Love her family. They're all super nice people. I did not get to shoot guns this time with her dad, but maybe next time.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Also, speaking of guns, this was fun. As you know, today's Cyber Monday. And as such, we have a special deal on membership. It's coincidentally the exact same deal that we have every other day of the year. But it's special because it's Cyber Monday. And that is, if you become a member, you will support this free show. And as a bonus, we give you an extra hour and a half of, I don't know, it's supposed to be an hour. It's supposed to be 45 minutes, I think. No, I think it was an hour, 50 minutes originally of extra programming, but it tends to be closer to 90 minutes. So head over to jointhemajorityreport.com. But folks, also remember, If you go to majoritygift.com, it's majoritygift.com, and maybe we should put this in the podcast description, majoritygift.com. You can send a gift of the Majority Report to someone that you like or don't like. It doesn't really matter to us whether you're doing it as a hate thing or as a love thing. Because I think good can come out of both of those sentiments if they're properly channeled. So you can give a monthly subscription and say how long you want it to last, 1 month up to 12 months. You can give an annual subscription. Super easy. Majoritygift.com. Or if you're really of that ilk, cucknation.com, I think it is. Is it org? Or is it org? I'm not sure.
Cucknation.edu.
No, I think it's actually like, is it org or .com?
It's org.
It's org. Yeah. Because I guess it's Cuck Nation is a nonprofit. But Majority Gift, if you're so in the mood. I should tell you that on Black Friday, apparently it was a record-breaking day for the number of background check requests for gun buyers. It received 203,086 requests for instant checks. That's a 10% increase from last year. So we're getting closer to whatever is supposed to happen while these people need these guns. Or maybe the deer are just getting that much larger. You need multiple, you need to get the deer in a crossfire to take them out. So congratulations, America. You set another record on Black Friday. Meanwhile, here's a clip. I want to play this before we get into the gist of what I want to talk about today, which is this, I don't know what we'd call a manifesto from a never Trumper, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Here is, I guess, in celebration of one of the princes getting engaged to somebody. I thought he already was. How many? There's two, right? Or are there three?
I don't know. I'm a Republican in this sense.
Is Harry the one who's getting engaged? Who's the one who's already married? Okay. Well, I'm not embarrassed by the fact that we don't know the answers to these questions.
It's patriotic that we don't.
I was just using it as a way of leading into this clip, which I thought was more interesting, which is that the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is on, I guess, ITV with Robert Peston, who must be a British journalist type. And this is the head cleric of the Church of England. And he's apparently is he the most revered or the most reverend? We're not very religious here either. We're not Anglophiles, and we're not that religious. But here he is. It's just nice to know that this is something that'll reach Trump, probably.
Do you understand why fundamentalist Christians in America are so supportive of Donald Trump?
There's two things going through my mind. Do I say what I think, or do I say what I should say? And I'm going to say what I think.
Good.
No, I don't understand. I really, genuinely do not understand where that is coming from. I think we can have different views on many of the issues he's raised, but...
So his attitude to women, for example, you presumably found abhorrent?
Well, it appears to be, as we all know, it's not as unusual as we'd like, but it is completely unacceptable.
Now, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but, the exceptionalism of Donald Trump. I don't know what the Archbishop of Canterbury was doing during the Bush years. But but it's hard to know exactly what it is that's so surprising about evangelicals supporting Donald Trump. Unless, of course, you take them seriously in that their belief system is supposed to be what exactly? I mean, there's been multiple examples in American politics of evangelical Christians being, okayed. Jim Bakker's still on TV. I mean, all of them. There's really no surprise here, unless you just haven't been paying attention. Unless it's just a function of just how, I guess, crude Donald Trump is. And of course he is crude, and he's stupid and has a tremendous amount of hubris for his stupidity. But, Billy Graham gave the okay to George Bush, who killed hundreds of thousands of people in a war of choice that nobody's quite clear why we fought it. And nobody's seen any benefits from it at this point. Is democracy broken out in Iraq yet?
Also, what's his church's position on abortion? Because he did bring up Trump's issues with women.
Well, I mean, I think that, yes, we could argue the point isn't to argue whether or not his own positions are in some way inconsistent with a perspective on the treatment of women. It's that he's imparting to evangelicals some level of integrity by the nature of them being evangelicals that has not been present in the past. Even if they have consistently been anti-abortion, which I think would also be due. I would love to see a quiz of how many evangelical Christians have taken advantage of abortion services. But that aside, it's not even the inconsistencies in his own philosophy. It's that this stuff has been going on for decades. Decades. And unremarked. That said, I do enjoy the fact that Donald Trump is going to see, he won't attack this guy because he's white. And it's no value to Donald Trump to attack.
I'm very busy.
Very busy. But you can bet if this was a person of any color but white, Donald Trump would be on it right now. All right, so I'm reading this thing, and I am literally thinking about, it's not in the copy at all, but we've been doing Blue Apron at our house for at least 2 years. Maybe 3, actually. And as I am sitting here thinking of the salmon we had the other night, soy glazed, with some type of vegetable fried rice. Nikki made it up. It was delicious. It was, let me put it this way, even my kids ate it. And I believe it was a Pacific Northwest salmon. It was a little pinker, not as fatty as your Atlantic salmon. But that's the salmon you get from most places. I mean, I tend to like the Atlantic one because it's a little fattier. But this was delicious. It was delicious. We ate all of it. With Blue Apron, you get convenience and you get variety. It delivers fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients, step-by-step recipes right to your door that can be cooked in under 45 minutes. The menu changes every week based on what's in season and is designed by Blue Apron's in-house culinary team. Blue Apron offers 12 new recipes a week. You can pick 2, 3, or 4 recipes based on what fits your schedule. We do 2 days a week. We tend to lean on the fish and the seafood. Occasionally we'll have chicken, but we'll do mostly fish, vegetarian, and chicken. because that's the way we roll. We're trying to get a little bit more meatless. Blue Apron sends only non-GMO ingredients for those who are concerned about GMOs, and meat with no added hormones. Blue Apron is treating Majority Report listeners to their first dinner. It's a $30 value if you visit blueapron.com/majority. Check out this week's menu. Get your $30 off with free shipping at blueapron.com/majority. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Check it out, folks. You won't be disappointed. All right, so my point being with the Archbishop of Canterbury, it's not, I don't know. I guess I'm in a slightly agitated mood. I don't know if I'm slightly agitated, but, you know, a lot of this was predictable. I'm still reeling. The other night I was on MSNBC. I guess this was a week ago with Bill Kristol. And, I mean, I don't know Bill Kristol personally. I've never had a single personal interaction with him. But for his public persona and what he's given to this country, I really, really intensely dislike him. He has given us Sarah Palin. He has given us the Iraq War. I mean, those are the two major, I think, contributions to American society. Now, he hasn't personally given us the Iraq War. He was just a huge cheerleader for it. And Sarah Palin, he probably more than any single individual, aside from John McCain, has a responsibility for Sarah Palin. I don't mind going on to a television show and arguing against him about something, but the segment was one where we were sort of having sort of like a, you know, one of the more lighthearted ones. And I don't want to be sitting there laughing with him. It just, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe I'm a stick in the mud, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it. And he is one of these never Trumpers. I guess over the week, I don't know, all the days have collapsed because of what's going on, time dilation. But he had tweeted out that like he's founding his inner feminist and his inner, I don't know what else he's found. Like he's just doing these like, I guess he's finding himself in some way. Or he's also rebranding and maybe, I don't know, finds that this is where he needs to be to get hired for contributorship or whatever it is. I don't know. But I don't need to impugn his motivations to basically say I'm not terribly interested. Here it is. The GOP tax bills bringing out my inner socialist. The sex scandals are bringing out my inner feminist. Donald Trump and Roy Moore are bringing out my inner liberal. What is happening? He says. Now, I can imagine what's happening. And, you know, you could boil all that down to like it's bringing out my inner career survivalist. Could also be happening. But let's put aside motivations for a moment, because I think this is more important, is to how people respond to these people. David Frum's, the Bill Kristols, this guy, Benjamin Wittes, who is now, you know, sort of famous, I guess, for having lunch with James Comey. And, jeez, okay, I think we're all right. He tweeted out a statement of principles of the coalition of all democratic forces of the United States of America, a political manifesto in 18 tweets. Yeah, Jesus, right. And part of the issue is, I mean, look, well, I'll read some of this because he writes, I believe, and it's a hashtag, I believe. I mean, I don't want to be too cynical here. I don't want to be too cynical. I want to be somewhat cynical. I believe that any issue that Americans do not need to be actively contesting right now across traditional left-right divisions, Americans need to be not actively contesting right now across traditional left-right divisions. And let me just say this in English instead of the quadruple negative he seems to be using. And I think there's a reason why one uses these type of double negatives. It's when one wants to, and he's a lawyer, when you want to make your proposal as narrow as possible, but you don't want to make it too clear that you're making it as narrow as possible. Do you follow me there? He believes that any issue Americans do not need to be actively contesting right now across the traditional left-right divisions should not be actively contested. Now, there's a couple of dilemmas here with this tweet. And this is in this belief, I guess, that he has, is that we don't know what those issues are that he thinks don't need to be contested right now. And he doesn't want to highlight that. So he does this double negative. In the next tweet, we have grave disagreements, and he says about social issues, about important foreign policy, tax policy, entitlements should be reformed or expanded, what sort of judges should serve on our courts. Hashtag, I believe in putting them all aside. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that we should that he has the ability to suspend these debates? To suspend the implications of these debates? Or is he's just going to ignore them? Hashtag, I believe in a temporary truce on all such questions. An agreement to maintain the status quo on major areas of policy dispute while Americans of good faith collectively band together to face a national emergency. Now, this I like a little bit better. Presumably, well, I guess actually even now I think about it, the status quo means as it is now? And does that mean processes that have begun? Does he mean no legislation should pass? No more judges should pass? That we should return to regular order? Or I don't understand what this means. What is the status quo? Is the status quo before Donald Trump was elected or not? And is it about the processes that are going on or not? Next one. I believe reasonable Americans across the political spectrum should unite around a political program based on the protection of American democracy and democratic institutions. I don't know how he would define reasonable Americans, but in this context, I imagine he means those who don't support Donald Trump. So we're breaking down, we're getting a better vision of who he's talking about in this coalition. It is all the people who fought against, who voted against Donald Trump, plus a handful of people on Twitter who are self-identified Republicans. I believe that means, among other things, an active defense of the First Amendment protections of free speech. Fine. It also means a focus on ethics in government. Fine. Although, there was a lot of shit that went down during the Bush administration that was arguably less than ethical. That whole thing about outing a CIA agent because they were squealing on the lie they were telling about that they were leading this country into war. The stuff about firing U.S. attorneys who wouldn't bring fake voter ID charges. I mean, there was a lot of that going on then. I don't know where Wittes was on that at the time. But nevertheless, okay. I believe it also means opposition to the abuses of power of the president. He called for or promised or attempted during his campaign, his transition, and his months in office from prosecuting political opponents to retaliating against media interfering with law enforcement. Fine. Supporting investigations. Okay. I believe in supporting the men and women of the bureaucracy. Okay. I believe in the work of our intelligence community and the performance of its professional duties. Fine-ish. I mean, okay. I believe in the restoration of decency in presidential conduct. Yeah, whatevs. In America's treatment of refugees and migrants. That might be nice. And its treatment of domestic minorities. Okay. So how far back are we going with this? In terms of the restoration of decency, is this going to be... I mean, at what point in our history of this country were its treatment of domestic minorities decent? Maybe they were slightly more polite or just a little bit less, a little bit more dog whistled. But, and then he throws in the way that the president talks about foreign nations and individuals. I feel like this is a big, this tweet is doing a lot of work, right? I believe in respecting America's alliances and keeping our word. Fine. I believe in getting answers to the many unanswered questions about the relationship between the president and his entourage and the Russian Federation. Yeah, okay. I mean, you got 18 tweets here. I believe in rejecting the demonization of Muslim and Muslim Americans, full stop. Nice. I believe in the regular order, that process matters, and that our shoot-from-the-hip ideological government has no place in our policy decision-making systems. Anybody want to look back up and see what he said during the Merrick Garland non-hearings? I imagine he felt there should have been hearings. It wasn't treaties level belief, but it was there. I believe in expertise and evidence and moral seriousness. Okay. I believe in preserving a country and fighting to preserve a country. All right. That's all I got. I mean, look, we have some issues there of like, we don't know what he's talking about in terms of the status quo. We don't know what he's talking about in terms of putting these questions aside. For the moment, well, what, Jamie?
I mean, there's so much to unpack here. I feel like I could write a whole essay about it.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to skip over a lot of it.
He kind of shows his hand in the beginning. Well, he shows his hand throughout. But in the beginning, when he lists off, not every important issue, but most of the issues that are important to us today, he's like, we should stop talking about all of this stuff because we have a president who is, he's lewd and he's crude, and that offends me. And he's just another example of like the kind of establishment politician centrist who is offended by Trump's mannerisms. He's offended by his delivery, his performativity, but on any important policy issue, I'm going to guess they're like 90% aligned.
I mean, I think that's true. I think a lot of these things, I do think that there is an argument that Trump represents a threat to democracy. However, I would also argue that the systemic disenfranchisement of voters, particularly of minorities, which the Republican Party has been engaging in intensely over the past 15, 20 years. Okay, starting with Karl Rove firing U.S. attorneys who would not gin up fake voter ID cases. Going on to a Republican-appointed Supreme Court that has got the Voting Rights Act. 2010, where you saw deliberate disenfranchisement of black people and other minorities.
Oh, people are getting mad at me in the chat. I'm sorry. I should clarify. Center right. I did not mean he's dead center.
No. This guy is a center right. That's true. But nevertheless, I mean, the point is that, and now Trump might be uniquely more dangerous, but it's really a matter of degree. But let's just, for the sake of argument, stipulate that Trump is uniquely dangerous. Okay? He's not made the case, A, that stopping to contest these things is going to help us get rid of Donald Trump. He hasn't even attempted to do that. Here's the other thing he hasn't offered. Why we should care what he thinks. Like, I mean, just looking at this strategically, where's the value in Benjamin Wittes saying that we should form a broad, popular, or unified front against Donald Trump?
He's James Comey's friend.
Yes. And, I mean, where, with all due respect to Benjamin Wittes, who I'm sure is a far more accomplished human being than I am in many respects, you and what army? Like, what are you going to do about it? What can you possibly do about it? You think you're motivated? Do you think there's a lot of voters out there who are saying, now hold on. I voted for Trump last time. But Benjamin Wittes from the Brookings Institution, he's no longer favoring Donald Trump. I mean, honestly, or even Bill Kristol, who's got far more acclaim. If Bill Kristol was right, what is the value of these people to our project? What are they offering? He's not even going out and saying, being explicit about what status quo means. He's not even saying, like, this guy, if he wanted to be of value, would be like, there should be no judges confirmed. None. Not one. Not at all. Because this president is uniquely bad. We need to show that he's uniquely bad. And he should be, what Benjamin Wittes, if he wants to be of a help, is he should be out there tweeting against Paul Ryan every day, because those are the people who are enabling him. And that's only that is the extent that Benjamin Wittes has any currency or value. That's it, period.
It's also convenient that he poses the status quo as a kind of neutral truce, as if that is not an inherently political position.
Well, I would say I don't think he's making that argument. I mean, he's saying the status quo is like freeze everything in place.
Yeah, so, and that is an inherently conservative position.
Well, I think the obvious direction things are heading in terms of government is conservative, right? I mean, the question to me is whether or not, because it's not like single payers on the table right now. I mean, he's talking about within the confines of Donald Trump's term. But the problem is that freezing the status quo is a record pace for sitting judges. Freezing the status quo is a record pace for the destruction of the administrative state. Does freezing the status quo, now maybe it seems to me, is you don't pass any new legislation. There is no tax bill. There is nothing done. It is complete obstruction, if that's what he's saying. Right? I mean, it is the case that the status quo is not good for the vast majority of Americans. But I think it's a safe assumption to say that at this moment, at least in terms of what's going on with our government, there is no lever to pull where things get better. There's only levers to pull where things don't get worse. Right? I mean, by what means are we going to see any progressive legislation, policy, or whatnot when we're talking in the context of our government?
I mean, we got to have goalposts. And if you're that I think these people really are intensely committed to the status quo. That is their ideology. So I think
But you think you don't think that there are people who want this tax bill to pass? You don't think that there are people who want more conservative judges? I mean, right now, someone's going to hear, and we're going to go to this because he tweeted out, look at this, on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is the most independent agency, probably the most successful government agency that's been launched in decades. It is, by design, independent of congressional funding. It gets its funding from fees that it charges to banks via the Dodd-Frank bill. It was set up specifically so that there was a succession order that would be independent. And there is a fight right now. Cordry appointed someone, or the acting deputy is supposed to take the place under the statute that formed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Donald Trump has appointed Mick Mulvaney, who is an arch nemesis of this agency. Republicans have not been able to defund it because, again, it gets its funding outside of normal government channels. So, and here's Benjamin Wittes, just, I don't know, how long after his little tweet storm was this? I don't know. Was within 24 hours, it seems. Somebody writes, I still don't really understand why people are fighting over who gets to be Consumer Financial Protection Bureau director in the brief interval before a new director is confirmed. And Wittes is like, word. Well, now wait a second. Didn't he say a return to the normal order? Isn't that one of the tweets here that he said? A return to regular order. Well, I mean, regular order is that there's an acting chief that's in there until the Senate confirms somebody. Now, this is going to be adjudicated because the acting deputy of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, not Mick Mulvaney, has filed suit. But this gets us back to the judges. It depends on who this judge is. And the fact of the matter is, the odds of a judge supporting the independence of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau today are higher than they will be in 2 years. And are lower than they were a year ago because of the nature of the federal judiciary. This is just the reality. And so things are headed in a more conservative direction. And that is inevitable, at least until the next election.
I still think the status quo cannot be the horizon that people are fighting for or looking towards. And
I don't think the guy's saying suspend your goals. I think he's just simply saying suspend contesting for them.
Well, I think it's a bit disingenuous on his part. And I mean, he also tips his hand when he talks about ideology in a negative light, as if that's a bad thing to have ideology.
Where does he talk about ideology?
Oh, I'm going back to Wittes.
Where does he say that?
Ideological, shoot from the hip government.
Ah, okay.
Like, I have a feeling he would say the same thing about Bernie Sanders.
I would imagine he would. I imagine he would.
And it's often like the Trump threat is often used as an excuse to scare people into supporting a status quo that is neoliberal.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true to a certain extent. But the problem is that, well, I mean, from my perspective, that A, it's not clear what he's saying to do. And B, he doesn't bring anything to the party. He's all ask and no give. And I think it's important to defeat Donald Trump. I think it's important to stop all the judges from getting appointed. These are going to have real world effects. I think it's important to get him to end his control of ICE. If you are an immigrant, I mean, we've heard this countless times, but as bad as Barack Obama was on deportations and light years better than what the situation we have now. And probably, I would imagine, going to be light years better when we go forward.
It does seem like it need to start with him saying, "Oh, I can bring these attorney generals or something on board. Like, what can you do?" And then you can make the ask. Like, any never Trumper thinking they can define terms or something like that is just bizarre.
Yeah, and this is also, I would say, like, I feel like nobody's even asking them to reconcile their previous positions or their previous support for organizations that brought this about.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
No, he's full of shit, but I think it's really important to really pull apart why. Because there's a lot of people out there who are just a little bit too enthusiastic that these big daddy Republicans are now giving their blessing. I mean, I get it. It makes for good TV to watch an apostate. But so what? Like, I want to know what the value of these apostates are. Who is it that is going to be moved by Benjamin Wittes? That we are to stop fighting for these things? And what value is there? I mean, as far as the data shows, Democrats in Virginia and DSA members in Virginia won because healthcare was so important. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to assess this offer. And the easiest one is, what's it worth? You want us to stop contesting politics? All right, what's the give? What do we get? I mean, are you going to round up Donald Trump and Mike Pence? Are we going to end up with Mike Pence if we sign off on this deal with you? But even if we sign off on this deal with you, what makes you think that you can deliver Mike Pence? Not that I would want him, but this is like one of those things, like the food is horrible and the portions are small.
That's true. I also think it's an example of the kind of thinking that might lose more elections for the Democrats.
Well, Benjamin Wittes is not a Democrat. And I think the idea is
similar idea.
Well, I don't know if it's a similar idea. Don't contest these things. I mean, I think on some level people can say, like, it's not time for this right now. But
yeah, exactly. We need to beat back the far right populist threat with the neoliberal center, and that's the only solution.
I mean, I think there's, I mean, maybe I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here too much, but I don't think that's his argument. I think his argument is just that, like, we need to focus on this. But the point is that, like, the people he's talking to and are saying to just put your weapons down for a moment. You don't have to change whose side you're fighting on. He's just saying, put your weapons down for a moment. All those people are all the people who already are against Trump. Like, how is it that arguing against this tax bill that is a massive giveaway to the rich, cuts the funding for health care for the poor, how is that enabling Trump?
It's not, and he knows it. And these people are always going to try to figure out a way to make that moment last forever, and that's just how they're doing it right now.
I mean, I think this is, and then I would also add that the cost is what Jamie's talking about, which is that this becomes a permanent position. Like, there's this assumption like, hey, wait a second. I mean, all you're doing when you say to Benjamin Wittes, like, you even consider this proposal, is you are strengthening Benjamin Wittes for after the fight.
I feel like they're just trying to model a new type of conservative, and they keep trying to these new iterations with, like, the what's the Jeff Flake guy thing, and it's just like,
this
gives
is
an
the
example
shit that
for people
went
who know Trump is insane.
This is the shit that went on in the aughts too. Oh, I'm a paleo-conservative. I'm not a neoconservative. I'm a paleo-conservative. I'm a movement conservative. I'm a Tea Party conservative. I'm a moral majority. They always rebrand. And so when you subscribe to this project, all you're doing, I mean, as far as I can tell, the only thing that's being brought to the table is Benjamin Wittes or Bill Kristol or David Frum. They get enhanced profile. They get reformed, they get enhanced, they get rejuvenated. Remember, David Frum was an apostate a long time ago, right? He was kicked off of wherever he was. I can't remember where it was. Was it National Review, or he got kicked out of somewhere? He was homeless as an intellectual, and now he's found his home. Do you remember Benjamin Wittes a year and a half ago? Neither do I. And Bill Kristol, when he was jettisoned from Fox, now he has a new home. I'm very happy for these people. I mean, I'm saying that sarcastically.
By the way, do you want to show this David Frum quote from his new book coming up here?
Oh, do we have a new David Frum quote? Here it is. If conservatives become convinced that they cannot win democratically, they will not abandon conservatism. They will reject democracy. That's super. That's the that's coming from David Frum's book, Trumpocracy. Now, I would like to remind David Frum of the president he worked for, who oversaw, who was brought into office because of the disenfranchisement of tens of thousands of voters in Florida, which a lot of people consider to be anti-democratic. I'd like to introduce him to the president he worked for, who oversaw the U.S. attorneys who were fired because they wouldn't gin up fake voter ID stuff. I'd like to introduce him to the president he worked for, and maybe he even wrote the speech when this president called for gay people to be second-class citizens constitutionally. I'd like to introduce him to the president that he worked for that lied this country into a war of choice and killed hundreds of thousands of people. I'd like to introduce him to the party that he was part and parcel of when they were assaulting the voting rights of individuals all across the country. 2010, I don't know if he was an apostate then, but I don't know if he noticed what was going on around the country in terms of disenfranchising voters. So you can call it Trumpocracy because it's going to sell, and it will. But I think you really should just go back to conservatocracy. That would actually have been a pretty good one. So, look, if there's value in retweeting them, I don't know that there is, but if you find value in it and you can articulate the value in it, that's great. But understand what you're doing. You're giving them your credibility. You're enhancing them. And I got news for you. When it's President Pence, they're not going to be out there finding their inner feminists and their inner socialists and their inner democracy champions. So that's the cost. The cost is you're creating these conservative superheroes, and they're not going to give up their powers once Trump has gone away. And what they're bringing to the game, as far as I can tell, not much. Not much. So just beware. I mean, I think it's just, it's not that newsy, but it's happening out there. People are talking about like this popular front. That's all well and good, but for what? For what?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you for the most part. I would also just include the hashtag resistance in some of this as well.
Of course.
Yeah, the way people greet news about the Comey investigation makes me a bit uneasy, as if they're expecting that to basically save everything.
Yeah, I mean, people should understand something. Donald Trump cannot be frog marched out of the White House. And Donald Trump will not be impeached. Not before 2022. I don't care what happens in 2018. I will guarantee you that Donald Trump will not be impeached in his first term in office. That's not happening. And if Donald Trump gets a second term, the idea of of impeachment, it seems a little late in the day.
Well, let's see if the next Democrat runs on the status quo. Maybe Trump will get a second term. Maybe he won't.
It seems unlikely to me. I mean, I can't even imagine at this point a Democrat who would be, at the very least, not mouthing things that we want to hear in terms of single payer and whatnot. It's super easy to do in this context, though. That's the problem.
I guess we'll see.
I mean, I would be surprised. I don't know who that Democrat would be. I mean, even who do you think that Democrat would be? Of the field right now, who's not mouthing? Don't talk to me about being disingenuous, because I think the vast majority of them would be disingenuous. And Cory Booker is like really found religion a little bit late in life, it seems to me.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't think Joe Biden's going to get very far. I mean, he may get that exploratory committee off the ground.
I think the environment might have changed a bit too much for Joe.
Not really. Joe Biden was a very bad primary candidate in multiple primary elections and managed to win. I don't know how many states he won. Maybe 1 or 2 each time. There's a reason why he's not president. And it's not for lack of trying.
I think you'd almost need to put Anita Hill on as VP, though.
Actually, that's true. Yeah, I don't think... I mean, good luck to Joe Biden, but I don't think that's happening.
There's also a large, well, not large, but a vocal contingent of people who want Hillary to run again.
Yeah, that also I don't think
is
is likely.
Did you see that? Someone tweeted that Salon article at me over the break, trying to stress me out about why Hillary should run.
I would be very careful about assuming that. I mean, vocal is a very relative term. I mean, if you're standing next to someone and they're going to sound loud, but I think I just don't think there's that many people who want that. But yes, of course, there are people within the Democrat, and there always has been, and sometimes it's larger and sometimes it's smaller, the contingent, and I can tell you it's smaller now than it was 15 years ago, without a doubt. But it's all part of the whole. But it's even worse, I think, when you start to bring in. I mean, because the problem is that you start to bring in guys like Frum and Bill Kristol, and the center of the party. It's a way of the party recentering to the right, and the project is to recenter the party to the left. And this is always. I mean, there's a certain inevitability about this. In fact, I think probably this time last year, I was on Hayes' show saying something to the effect of like this resistance, or whatever it was called at that point. The danger is that I remember specifically talking about a popular front, and the problem is that you sort of forget what it is you're fighting for. And I do think that Trump is a threat, and he may be somewhat unique, but that doesn't mean that fighting for... Look, I think there was a danger early on that Donald Trump could take positions that would make agendas complicated. And it's not inconceivable to me that the Democrats could win the House and Donald Trump comes out for single payer. I mean, I think this is an exaggeration, but if Donald Trump, let me put it this way, if Donald Trump felt in 2019 that it would help his electoral, now it may be too late for him in 2019, but had Donald Trump come out with an infrastructure bill early on in January of last year, that didn't involve wasn't just simply a Trojan horse for massive privatization, but was a legitimate infrastructure bill. We're going to take $500 billion and we're going to put it into public transportation. We're going to put it into, renewable energy, whatnot. and then had every other part of his program. We're also going to make this a very hostile place for immigrants. We're also going to destroy the environment. We're also going to give massive tax cuts to the rich. That's when you start to get into some very confusing and dangerous times, right? Do you want to enable and empower a guy like this who does have tendencies that bleed into somewhat unprecedented areas in terms of authoritarianism in this country? Fortunately for us, that doesn't seem to be a dilemma that we're faced with. It was conceivable, certainly. I mean, there were people who were, I don't know, when Bernie said, like, I'll work with them if there's stuff that's good. I think largely that was like, we got to at least performatively make it look like we're giving him an opportunity. But what if Trump had actually said, yeah, single payer?
Well, all you got to do to see what that's like is look at Europe and some of the far-right movements that have a much more actual social democratic element to it, but only for the right people.
Right. Well, I mean, it would have been a dilemma, right?
I think mainly the deal is they couldn't figure out how to have an infrastructure deal that would only help people in Trump country.
It's possible. We're going to have huge trains only in Montana, North Dakota. All right. We got to, I went a little long on that stuff, but obviously we've got to deal with the tax deal that's coming up. And I don't know, at this point, I don't know what the Democrats have been doing, what they can do. It's been interesting. There was a piece I saw the other day where Joe Donnelly, they can't even get Joe Donnelly to move on this. Democrats are holding their caucus together, again, I think largely because of this one element where, Trump is considered to be particularly odious. It's making it harder for people like Joe Donnelly and Matt's favorite senator, Heidi Heitkamp, and Joe Manchin to sort of to leave the Democratic caucus. And during the Bush years, the problem was that you'd have 10, 12 Democrats voting with Republicans. And now you've had basically none. All right, we got to take a break, head into the fun half of the show. We'll talk more about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is, of course, the net neutrality fight. And, it's good at least that they can't use as a talking point. Look at all the comments in favor of getting rid of net neutrality. Literally millions of them were faked. Hundreds of thousands from New York. That's how Schneiderman got involved in this. He had people complain to him, like, my name's on there, and I never signed it.
Is that fraud, or is there not a criminal?
If they found who did it, I would imagine it's criminal.
I'd imagine it's not many different organizations that would be doing
it.
It
Appears to be one or two entities. Vladimir Putin.
It's cute they think that that's actually going to matter, too, what kinds of comments people make on this stuff.
Well, it mattered during the Obama years. I mean, I don't think Tom Wheeler was inclined in favor of net neutrality, and I don't think that Barack Obama cared that much about it. But they got 3 million comments. It broke all records, and I think they were forced to do it. You don't think?
Yeah, I think, to the Obama administration's credit, they were a little more able to be pressured than maybe this one is.
Of course. Of course. We have no leverage with a Republican administration. We have limited leverage with a Democratic one. And that's the difference between leverage and no leverage. Yeah, of course. That is that, and net neutrality is a perfect example of that. Tom Wheeler was an an industry lawyer, an industry lobbyist. But you can't alienate that much of your potential voting base. We are not Donald Trump's potential voting base. So we don't get even to complain to him about it and have it matter one iota. At least with Obama, it mattered an iota. All right, folks. And 1 is better than 0. Walter Block. Right? Wouldn't you rather have 1 instead of 0? All right. We've got some pretty good sound for the fun half. A reminder, it is your support that makes the show possible. Become a member today. Join themajorityreport.com. Also, you still got, I think you got 2 more weeks on the Just Coffee. We just got an order. Have we cracked that open? Did you crack that open yet? What did we get? We got a 2-pound bag of the Columbia. No. Columbia. You want a Colombian, right? It's all South America to me. 30% off. You get free shipping plus 30% off. Use the coupon code MRHoliday. Just Coffee. It's all fair trade. Also, don't forget to use our links if you're buying presents for people. You can get our links at our affiliate links for anything you could possibly buy online at MajorityReportKickback.com, MajorityReportKickback.com. What else can I tell you? Don't forget tomorrow night, TMBS. Who was on last week, Matt? Matt doesn't remember. It's been a long week, folks.
We have Mike Hanna on tomorrow night, though, talking about Zimbabwe and stuff.
Oh, the Sex at Dawn episode was very good. I heartily recommend
Oh, right. It was that guy, Chris Ryan,
It was
right?
super interesting. I feel bad for saying it was evolutionary psychology. I really didn't know what I was talking about. It's super good.
Check it out, folks. Also, big news. We have 2 new desks that Matt and Jamie are sitting at, and we're going to, I think in the next day or 2, I'm going to set up that other camera. So it's all happening, folks.
Tune in tomorrow.
Well, not maybe. I don't know about tomorrow.
Or soon.
Let's not overpromise. All right. See you in the fun half. 646-257-3920.